Energy for today, energy for tomorrow. This is the new slogan associated with one of the largest corporate entities in Africa, the new Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, as the federal government unveils the new logo of the oil company. In line with Section 53(1) of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, which requires the Minister of Petroleum Resources to cause the incorporation of the NNPC Limited within 6 months of the enactment of the PIA, the oil company will now operate as a private entity. Under the new structure, the group CEO, Mele Kyari, says that the NNPC Limited plans to grow oil retail outlets in the country from 547 to over 1,500 within the next 6 months. How does the workings of new NNPC Limited affect Nigerians and the economy at large? This will be our focus on the program today. Thanks for joining. I am Ayuba Ilya. Now, to discuss the new NNPC Limited is an energy sustainability expert and chairman, Zenara Group, Mecca Olowolo, who joins us via Skype from Lagos, and also will be taking a look at all the different perspectives on this. Thank you for joining us on Dateline. So first things first, let's have a sense of the new structure of the new NNPC Limited, no longer NNPC, but NNPC Company Limited. So let's have a sense of the structure and the operations and the workings of this new company.
So pretty much what's going on now is that NNPC Limited is now a fully privatized limited liability company, which pretty means that it's no longer under the control of total control of the federal government. And something that Nigerians and experts and industry stakeholders have been clamoring for in earnest for 10 years, and generally for the last 20 years, has come to fruition. So the way Nigerians should view this is just like any other limited liability company, that they know or that they have shares in, pretty much that's the way NNPC Limited is going to operate going forward. The most significant development here is that it will no longer receive subventions from the federal government, and so no longer going to be under its entire control, and it will now be forced to operate in a way that is very transparent and very accountable, with economies that are ethical and books that are completely open for every one of us to see.
Okay, so in terms of control now, and in terms of staffing and all of that, what's the shares that government still has, and to what extent can the government actually influence what's happening in the NNPC?
So government pretty much is just going to take a backseat right now. They would come up with how much shares they want to own in the new entity, and how much is going to go to go public eventually, because that state will still have a say to some extent, because they will remain shareholders, but they are no longer majority shareholders. What is going to then happen is that they have absolutely no control over the staffing of NNPC Limited, because the chief executive of NNPC will then be, the board that he reports to will be in total control of, the management of the affairs of NNPC, and they will then determine, the level of staffing, the new staffing that will come in. They have said that they are not going to resize, the 7,000 employees that currently work at the NNPC, but they will operate in a nimble manner going forward, which means, we're not likely to see any over bloating in future as they come under pressure to declare, profitability. They have the profit and loss accounts like every other company.
Okay, so now, is there a connection between the new pricing regime that we are seeing of the Premium Motto Spirit and this new rebranding of the NNPC?
I personally don't think so. The repricing of the right pricing of the pump price for petroleum products, has always been long overdue, and we've always clamored, for full deregulation of, the downstream, market, to allow market forces to take control and let us see efficiencies and a lot of effectiveness in the market like we have in other sectors that have been privatized. But as it is, we have a lot of wastage, over 5 trillion, that we have to subsidize petroleum products with, which could have gone into very productive sectors in Nigeria. Be that as it may, we are very sensitive to the fact that, with all the hardship and economic, challenges in the country at this time, government has to be sensitive, with the removal of subsidy. So, if you notice, for the last 18 months, there has been gradual removal of some sort. So, with gradual adjustment of the pump price of fuel, petrol specifically, in the filling stations, and what has happened is that I think this was done to be able to fix the queues that have started to come up again, and with the private sector refusal to import fuels and to distribute same effectively. I think it's just a coincidence that is coinciding with when NNPC Limited is unveiling its logo.
So now, the issue now is that we have different prices of PMS in different regions of the country. Is that in the interest of Nigerians, really? Because, some in other parts are paying different amounts and all of that. In terms of regulation, where should we be looking now that NNPC is, taking the backseat when it comes to all of this?
So, in a truly deregulated market, right, to be candid, you can have uniform pricing, right? Just check any other products, that is fully deregulated, like diesel, right? You don't have uniform prices. So, depends on where you're sourcing the product from. If the ship is betting in the south and you factor in transportation costs, you're going to find it more expensive in areas where they've layered ground transportation on the pricing of the product. All right. So in a truly deregulated market, one of the things that you will see very evidently is that the pricing will be different from location to location. And what it allows us to do is that you can then be very competitive. So if you decide to move your products by rail, for example, you'll be able to transfer, the gains from that, saving, to your customer. So people will be forced to be very creative and be innovative, in the way they deliver efficiency, to the market. Now, so what we have always, advocated for is, yes, the market needs to be deregulated, but there should be serious education and communication, that should precede it, and that should even subsist alongside the deregulation.
So, but will this not lead to a situation where Nigerians are, taken advantage of in terms of, the pricing of the product, particularly the PMS?
So, I mean, why is Nigeria peculiar, really? Because all the other states in Africa, all over the world, are fully deregulated. Diesel right now in Nigeria is deregulated. As I speak to you now, that's what's going on. But so how are companies surviving? How are corporates surviving? Yes, the risk exists. What I'm saying is that if we keep looking at those challenges and those possibilities, right, that there could be people who will intend to defraud, the masses, then we will not take some of the right decisions that will be good for the future of Nigeria. So what the government, should do would be to make sure, that the supervision and monitoring is increased. So to make sure that some of these things are not being taken advantage. The suppliers are not taking advantage of the consumers in a way that is inimical, to their livelihood, and that is already happening in certain respects with other products that we see. So eventually, what would then happen in a very elastic economy will be that players who are serious and companies that have integrity are the ones that will then dominate the market, because everybody will then tend to start to gravitate, towards companies that are run ethically and companies that are running efficiently and are transferring those gains, to the public, and then they will shun the guys, who are being fraudulent or nefarious, in their own activities. That is what will eventually happen. But in the short term, I agree with you completely that we possibly will face, issues around exploitation and issues around abuse.
All right, now in April, the federal government reviewed the 2022 budget, increasing the allocation for subsidy to 4 trillion naira. Now, with the new price regime, has the subsidy payment now been suspended, or are we paying the subsidy and then at the same time, Nigerians are paying more for the product, PMS?
That would be completely criminal for subsidy to be paid at the same time increasing the fuel pump price of PMS. So the exact opposite is what should happen. So you can have is mutually exclusive. You can have pump prices go up and also have subsidy payment remain the same. What is happening is that government is unable to pay subsidy and is no longer sustainable for government to be able to pay subsidy. And simply what they're doing is, transferring it, to the consumer to bear. So I think that because not many official pronouncements have come, we're going to see certain things come up soon.
The subsidy has been suspended at the moment. Is that the case?
No. I'm just saying that you can't have subsidy and also have increase in the pump price at the same time. So the government has not come out to make any announcement or any pronouncement, but I can tell you for sure that very soon
already Nigerians are paying more for the product. They are paying more for fuel. Absolutely. So if Nigerians are paying more, it's as good as the subsidy has been removed already.
So you see, what you are paying right now is still not the market price. Do you get it? It's still not the market price, and I must apologize for the ambient lighting here. But it's the truth is that we are still not paying what the landing price of PMS is in Nigeria today. So there's still a form of subsidy going on. Do you get it? That's the realistic, market scenario. When you import, fuel from, very high crude oil prices that you have right now, there's still a bit of subsidy, but it's not up to, what has been appropriated for that. So I agree with you. It should definitely reduce, and we expect announcements from government in this regard.
Okay. All right, then. Well, we'll take a short break, and then when we come back, the discussion will continue. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. If you are just joining, you are watching Dateline, reaching you from the nation's capital here in Abuja. I still have energy sustainability expert and chairman, Zenara Group, Mecca Olowolo, discussing the new NNPC Limited and its implication on the Nigeria's economy. Now, let's take a look at, globally, how this rebranding will boost the chances of Nigeria operating in the global crude oil market.
So the chances are much brighter now because generally speaking, international markets are weary of dealing with, public institutions where there's a lot of bureaucracy, where there's a lot of government intervention, where there's a lot of interference, and where there's no predictability, long-term predictability. They will be fraught with staff changes and stuff like that. So as soon as you privatize, your national oil company, you're signaling to the world that you're ready for serious business, and there's very strong antecedents in the market. Privatized oil and gas companies are some of the biggest companies in the world, not only in oil and gas, but in the entire market, as a whole. So you have companies like Saudi, Aramco, who are doing very well. You have Kuwait Petroleum, you have Sinopec, you have, companies that have been privatized, Petrobras in Brazil, all doing, very well, So what is going to happen is that as soon as NNPC Limited goes into the market, based on, the branding alone and the goodwill that will generate, the market is going to give it a valuation, that is commensurate with, the forecast that analysts will, posit, for it in the short term and in the foreseeable future. So we are taking the right steps in the right direction, without a doubt. One of the major expectations will then be governance. As soon as you signal to the market that you're serious about sustainability and you're serious about ethical economics, you're serious about, global citizenship, you're serious about corporate social responsibility, you're serious about accountability and transparency and ethics and governance and things, sustainability, ethos and stuff like that.
There are, pessimists who feel that, look, we shouldn't be too excited at the moment because we've seen privatization done in the past, especially if you look at the power sector in Nigeria. That has not resulted in, stable power supply for Nigerians. We're still dealing with the issue. So why is this one different? Should we really be that excited?
Yes, we should be by every means excited because one, it's like someone who is comatose in a hospital, starting to cough, and starting to speak gradually, right? Yes, you may say, you may have very cautious optimism around that development, but the truth is that, there's movement in the right direction. And I think that's what we are applauding today. Yes, the power sector is struggling, but look at Nigeria. What do we have, to show for all the monies that have been invested in NNPC, in the oil and gas sector? Look at the oil production. Look at the amount that have been spent on maintaining refineries. Do you understand? Kaduna refineries got 64 billion in staff wages and stuff like that.
So
to show for it. So what I'm saying is that we are moving in the right direction at least.
Okay, so since we are moving in the right direction, should Nigerians be expecting the revival of the country's refineries now that we are under the NNPC Limited?
Yes. So what is going to happen is, don't forget that some of the issues that have plagued the refineries have been issues of mismanagement, and lack of effectiveness and efficiency, right? When you then have, the private sector funding you, your mindset changes immediately, because now you have to be accountable to people who are funding in you, and they're going to nominate people who are going to sit on the board. They're going to nominate auditors who are going to check your accounts. So what you're going to see going forward is that people are putting their monies where their mouth is, and those are the guys who are superintending the affairs of the NNPC Limited. All right. So if they give, no more subventions coming from government where, people can misuse, can misappropriate and abuse, those funds without any consequences. Now there will be consequences.
So in other words, you are saying that, I mean, the days of corruption in the NNPC are over, isn't it? With, much more.
I say it with what I'm saying with every sense of certainty and confidence is that the days of brazen corruption in the NNPC are over. Those days are over, right? But like in every other private sector, it doesn't mean that you have completely, eradicated corruption. Where you have human beings, the tendencies are there. But when you're forced, to publish audited accounts, it becomes more difficult. And that's the point I'm making, that it's going to be more difficult, and you will be able to make a case to see the books of NNPC.
Okay. Now, the PIA itself was suspended,
Yes.
by the federal government sometimes, I think last year, for about 18 months. So now, what should we expect in terms of the taking of, the effect of this rebranding? How soon will it take effect?
So I don't know for certain, the timelines that are going to follow. All of these things, are very recent development, and things are still unfolding. The NNPC is going to, make further announcements. They've committed to, a process and a timeline, and those things are happening very well. What I suspect, will be the next step now will be, to start to look at, current cash calls and where future cash calls will come from. They will audit, their personnel management and their, staffing, to be able to work around where they're going to focus on going forward. There are going to be, a lot of, restructuring, to make sure that they're getting where, they're getting, their staffing right, and the payments, where the investors are going to come in from and stuff like that. So those are the things that are going to start happening rapidly. But part of this rebranding is an activation of Section 55 of the PIA itself. So those things are already happening. What you're saying now is all those things that the government has committed to and said is going to happen. So they will maintain their 5 billion existing credit line, and then so the it's not going to be business as usual. So we're going to have all of adequate protection for the investment. So the PIA says that there's adequate protection for the investment, that will come into the NNPC Limited, either locally or internationally. And I think that that's a major thing that, without a doubt, is going to help, the brand new limited liability, company that has just been struck.
All right. So the NNPC Limited is promising to increase retail outlets to 1,500 across the country. How is that going to help in terms of supply and distribution of the PMS and other petroleum products?
So thank you very much. I think that's a very strong, question that ties to one that you asked earlier on about, checking abuse when you deregulate. So if NNPC alone, is having 1,500 retail outlets, and bear in mind the infrastructure that they have, the strengths that they have, and the muscle that they have, to keep the nation wet, what you're then going to see is ability to provide petroleum resources, right? Across the length and breadth of Nigeria to make sure that Nigerians have access to, adequate supply of petroleum, of petrol itself, that's PMS. And, so it's a very welcome development. It's one that excites everyone. And I think that is pretty much NNPC Limited getting ready for full deregulation, right? But to answer your question in a straightforward manner, it's a good development. It's going to, help with the distribution of, very safe, very well-distributed PMS and other, downstream petroleum products like kerosene, like lubricants, and LPG, the liquefied petroleum gas.
One more thing just before we go. We are seeing that the aviation sector is in a bit of a crisis owing to the issue of the Jet A1, the aviation fuel, which is, the price is skyrocketing right now per liter. Aero contractors have suspended operations, and, we're expecting that more airlines will be, affected by these in the coming days. So how is this going to help?
So I don't know how it's going to help in the short term. I don't think that anything will change drastically regarding Jet A1. But in the long term, what we are going to have is, I foresee, in the medium term that, a number of refineries will come up apart from the Dangote refinery. When Dangote refinery comes on stream, Nigeria is then able to, through the NNPC Limited, focus, on truly revamping the existing refineries and bringing them on stream to contribute. There are 445, barrels a day refining capacity. You're going to have a lot more. You're going to have local production because there is none right now of jet fuel, right? And that is going to help a lot, because until you start to refine the crude oil that you have, right, you are going to be at the mercy of the international market, period. And right now, because of the Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war, prices have gone up, right? And they're going to, remain like that for at least the forecast that at least the rest of the year, So we're still going to have a lot of that struggle with jet fuel. What I think the government should do is to, set up an emergency subvention fund, to bail out, airline and subsidize and keep, subsidies up in the interest of Nigeria. Because what then happens is that it allows the citizens, to commute, by air and transact businesses, which will then help the GDP, and government will then benefit in other areas. So the net, positive effect for Nigeria is what the federal government should focus on, and not, the airlines. And that's what happens all over the world,
All right, thank you so much. Mecca Olowolo, Energy Sustainability Expert and Chairman, Zenara Group, who joins us virtually from Lagos to give perspectives on this. Thank you so much for joining. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
All right. So that's a wrap on Dateline for today. You can watch via all our social media platforms and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.